Marcus Aurelius's $4.6 trillion empire, The Ancient CEO's Guide to Unstoppable Wealth. In 161 AD, Marcus Aurelius inherited the world's largest business empire worth $4.6 trillion in today's money. The leadership principles he used to manage this empire are the same ones modern billionaires use to build their fortunes. Here's his exact playbook. Jeff Bezos studies his decision-making framework. Warren Buffett quotes his investment philosophy. Tim Cook uses his crisis management strategies. Naval Ravikant credits his wealth-building approach. Ray Dalio built Bridgewater using his organizational principles. But here's what most business schools don't teach you. Marcus Aurelius didn't just inherit this empire, he revolutionized it using a systematic approach to sustainable wealth creation that works even better in today's economy than it did 2,000 years ago. While most entrepreneurs burn out chasing the next big thing, Marcus Aurelius built sustainable wealth by following counterintuitive principles that modern psychology has proven increase success by 300%. He understood something that took modern neuroscience 2,000 years to discover. The entrepreneurs who build lasting wealth aren't driven by fear, greed, or desperation. They're driven by character, purpose, and long-term value creation. When plague wiped out 30% of the Roman economy and barbarian invasions threatened every border, Marcus Aurelius didn't just survive, he strengthened the empire. His crisis management strategy is exactly what you need for the economic uncertainty ahead. But here's the real secret. Marcus believed that thinking about death every day would make you richer. Sounds insane? By the end of this masterclass, you'll understand why this ancient practice is the secret to fearless wealth building. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by business pressure, betrayed by partners, or paralyzed by important decisions, Marcus Aurelius faced all of this while managing an empire spanning 3 continents with 60 million people. His response will revolutionize how you handle entrepreneurship. Because here's what most people don't realize. Before Amazon, before Apple, before any modern corporation, Marcus Aurelius ran a business empire with annual revenues equivalent to $400 billion, using organizational principles that Fortune 500 companies still copy today. Picture this. You're 40 years old. You've spent your entire life studying philosophy, writing, and contemplating the deeper meanings of existence. You have no business experience, no MBA, no corporate training. Then suddenly, you're handed control of an organization that spans 3 continents, employs millions of people, and generates more revenue than Walmart, Amazon, and Apple combined. This wasn't a startup story or a rags to riches tale. This was Marcus Aurelius on March 7th, 161 AD, the day Emperor Antoninus Pius died and left him the Roman Empire. But here's what makes this story extraordinary. He didn't want the job. Most leaders crave power, fight for position, scheme for advancement. Marcus actually tried to decline becoming emperor. He was perfectly content with his life as a philosopher and student. Yet this reluctance, this complete lack of ego and ambition, became his greatest business asset. Because while other leaders focused on extracting value for themselves, Marcus focused on creating value for everyone. And that difference in mindset is what separated the richest man in history from every other leader before or since. The numbers are staggering when you convert them to modern terms. The Roman Empire under Marcus Aurelius controlled 5 million square kilometers, larger than the entire European Union. It had 60 million people and annual revenues of $400 billion in today's money. That's larger than Walmart, Amazon, and Apple combined. But here's the real secret that most business schools don't teach you. This wasn't built through aggressive expansion or ruthless competition. It was built through what Marcus called the discipline of virtue, a systematic approach to wealth creation that modern billionaires are secretly copying today. Now here's where it gets really interesting. When Antoninus Pius first indicated that Marcus would be his successor, Marcus actually tried to decline. He had no political ambitions, no burning desire to rule the world. In his private journal, which we now know as Meditations, he wrote about the burden of leadership and how he would rather spend his time in contemplation and study. Yet this reluctance became his greatest business asset. Because here's what most entrepreneurs get completely wrong about wealth building. They think success comes from wanting it more than everyone else. They think you need to be ruthlessly ambitious, aggressively competitive, and willing to do whatever it takes to win. Marcus proved the opposite. The most sustainable wealth comes from not wanting power for its own sake, but from being willing to accept responsibility for creating value for others. But the real secret isn't what you think. While other emperors ruled through fear and personal ambition, Marcus brought something completely different, a systematic approach to decision-making based on virtue, wisdom, and the long-term good of the empire. He didn't see himself as the owner of a vast business empire, but as its steward, responsible for the welfare of millions of people and the sustainability of the organization for future generations. And this shift in perspective changed everything. When Marcus finally accepted the role of emperor, he brought a completely different approach to imperial leadership than his predecessors. Previous emperors had often seen the empire as their personal property to be exploited for their own benefit or used to satisfy their personal ambitions. Marcus saw the empire as a trust, a responsibility that had been placed in his care for the benefit of current and future generations. This shift in perspective had profound implications for how he approached every aspect of imperial administration. Instead of asking, "How can I use this empire to benefit myself?" he asked, "How can I use my position to benefit this empire?" Instead of focusing on extracting maximum value from the provinces, he focused on creating conditions that would enable the provinces to generate maximum value sustainably over time. The transformation was immediate. Within the first year of Marcus's reign, provincial governors reported increased cooperation, improved efficiency, and reduced costs. Trade volumes increased, infrastructure projects accelerated, and military recruitment improved. When the Antonine Plague struck in 166 AD, killing up to 30% of the population in some regions, Marcus applied Stoic principles to crisis management that not only preserved the empire but strengthened it for the future. The Roman Empire that Marcus inherited was already the world's first truly global corporation, but most people don't understand just how sophisticated its business model was. Think about the organizational challenges. How do you manage operations across 3 continents when the fastest communication method is a horse? How do you maintain quality control when your regional offices are separated by thousands of miles and months of travel time? How do you create a unified corporate culture among people who speak dozens of different languages and come from completely different cultural backgrounds? The Romans solved these problems through innovations that modern corporations are still copying today. They created the world's first franchise model through their provincial system. Each province was essentially a regional franchise, with a governor who acted as the regional manager. These governors had significant autonomy to adapt Roman policies to local conditions, but they operated within a strict framework of Roman law, Roman standards, and Roman accountability measures. The Roman system balanced centralized control with local autonomy, what modern management calls subsidiarity. Each governor ran a multi-billion-dollar regional operation while maintaining Roman standards and contributing to overall success. The accountability systems were sophisticated, with detailed financial reports and performance metrics. Most importantly, the system created aligned incentives where governors advanced their careers by improving their province's long-term prosperity, not by short-term extraction. Marcus Aurelius inherited this system, but he refined and improved it in ways that increased both its effectiveness and its sustainability. He implemented what we would now call performance management systems that provided governors with clearer objectives, better feedback, and more support for achieving their goals. He created what we would now call leadership development programs that prepared promising administrators for higher levels of responsibility. Most importantly, he modeled the kind of leadership he expected from his governors. Instead of ruling from Rome and issuing commands to distant provinces, Marcus spent much of his reign traveling throughout the empire, visiting provinces, meeting with local leaders, and personally observing the challenges and opportunities that governors faced in their daily work. The results were extraordinary. During Marcus's reign, the Roman Empire achieved levels of economic integration and prosperity that wouldn't be matched until the modern era. The Romans created sophisticated supply chain systems with standardized transportation, warehousing, and distribution networks that moved goods efficiently across 3,000 plus mile distances using integrated road, river, and sea transport. The financial systems were equally advanced. The Romans created what was essentially the world's first international banking network, with standardized currencies, credit instruments, and accounting procedures that enabled complex financial transactions across vast distances and multiple jurisdictions. Roman merchants could conduct business in Britain using credit instruments issued in Egypt, with confidence that the financial obligations would be honored and enforced, regardless of the political or economic conditions in any particular region. This financial integration created enormous economic efficiencies and opportunities for wealth creation. Entrepreneurs could access capital from investors throughout the empire, regardless of their geographic location. Merchants could diversify their risks by operating in multiple markets simultaneously. Investors could diversify their portfolios by funding projects in different regions and industries. Marcus understood that these systems created powerful network effects. The more participants, the more valuable the entire system became. He implemented policies that strengthened these effects, standardizing legal procedures, investing in infrastructure, and maintaining monetary stability. This created a virtuous cycle where prosperity attracted more talent and capital, which generated more prosperity, continuing for centuries. The standardization was remarkable. Whether you were in Britain, Egypt, or Spain, Roman coins had the same value, Roman roads were built to the same specifications, Roman legal procedures followed the same protocols, and Roman military units operated with the same training and equipment. This wasn't just administrative efficiency, it was the foundation of the world's first global economy. Consider the supply chain mastery. The Romans could move goods from Britain to Egypt more efficiently than many modern companies can move products across a single country. They built 250,000 miles of roads. That's enough to circle the Earth 10 times. These weren't just transportation routes, they were the arteries of a global business empire. Goods, information, people, and money flowed along these roads with a precision that wouldn't be matched again until the modern era. The Roman currency system was equally sophisticated. They created the world's first truly international currency, accepted from Scotland to Sudan. Roman coins weren't just money, they were branding and communication tools carrying messages about imperial policy and values. The denarius maintained its silver content for over 200 years. Monetary stability no modern currency has achieved. Marcus used coins strategically during crises to communicate themes of resilience and prosperity, reinforcing the value proposition of Roman citizenship. The human resources innovations were equally remarkable. The Roman Empire employed millions of people in various capacities, from soldiers and administrators to engineers and teachers. Managing this workforce required innovations in recruitment, training, promotion, and compensation that were centuries ahead of their time and that modern corporations are still trying to perfect. The Roman military, for example, wasn't just an army, it was the world's first large-scale professional development organization. Roman soldiers received not just military training, but education in engineering, administration, logistics, and leadership. They learned skills that made them valuable contributors to the civilian economy after their military service ended. They developed networks and relationships that facilitated business and trade throughout the empire. The Roman civil service was equally sophisticated. The empire created career paths that allowed talented individuals to advance from local positions to provincial responsibilities to imperial leadership roles. These weren't just jobs, they were professional development opportunities that created a class of skilled administrators who understood how to manage complex organizations and create value for multiple stakeholders. The promotion systems were based on merit rather than birth or political connections. While family background and social status certainly mattered, the empire's need for competent administrators created opportunities for talented individuals from all backgrounds to advance based on their performance and capabilities. Marcus Aurelius expanded and refined these systems, creating what we would now call leadership development programs that identified promising individuals early in their careers and provided them with the training, experience, and mentorship they needed to take on greater responsibilities. He understood that the empire's long-term success depended on having a deep bench of capable leaders who could handle the complex challenges of managing a global organization. The compensation systems were equally advanced. Roman administrators received not just salaries, but performance bonuses, retirement benefits, and opportunities for advancement that aligned their personal interests with the empire's long-term objectives. Successful governors could expect not just financial rewards, but social status, political influence, and opportunities to leave lasting legacies through infrastructure projects and policy innovations. But perhaps most importantly, the Roman system created what modern management theorists call psychological ownership, a sense among employees that they had a personal stake in the organization's success. Roman administrators weren't just following orders from distant superiors. They were building something they believed in, contributing to something larger than themselves, and creating value that would benefit their own families and communities. This psychological ownership was crucial to the empire's success because it enabled the kind of distributed decision-making and local initiative that was necessary to manage such a complex organization. Roman governors couldn't wait for instructions from Rome every time they faced a new challenge or opportunity. They had to be able to make good decisions independently, based on their understanding of Roman values and objectives. Marcus fostered this psychological ownership through his leadership style and his approach to delegation. Instead of micromanaging from Rome, he provided clear objectives and principles, then trusted his administrators to figure out how to achieve those objectives in their specific contexts. He supported their initiatives, celebrated their successes, and helped them learn from their failures. The results were extraordinary. The Roman Empire achieved levels of administrative efficiency, economic integration, and sustainable prosperity that weren't matched again until the modern era. But these results weren't just the product of good systems and processes. They were the product of leadership that understood how to align individual motivations with organizational objectives, and how to create cultures that brought out the best in people. This is perhaps the most important lesson that modern entrepreneurs can learn from Marcus Aurelius. Sustainable wealth creation isn't just about having good strategies or efficient operations. It's about creating organizations where people want to contribute their best efforts, where individual success and organizational success are aligned, and where everyone involved feels like they're part of something meaningful and worthwhile. The Roman approach to innovation and technology development was equally sophisticated. While we often think of the Romans primarily as military conquerors or political administrators, they were also remarkable innovators who developed technologies and business practices that created enormous economic value and competitive advantages. Roman engineering achievements are well known, the roads, aqueducts, and buildings that still exist today. But what's less well understood is how these engineering projects were integrated into broader business strategies that created sustainable competitive advantages and generated wealth for the empire. Take the Roman road system, for example. These weren't just transportation infrastructure, they were strategic investments that reduced the costs of trade, communication, and administration throughout the empire. By making it faster, cheaper, and safer to move goods and people across long distances, the roads created economic opportunities that generated tax revenues far in excess of their construction costs. But the roads also created what economists call network effects. The value of the road system increased exponentially as more roads were built and connected to the existing network. Each new road made all existing roads more valuable by creating new routes and reducing travel times between destinations. Marcus understood these dynamics and invested heavily in road construction and maintenance throughout his reign. He didn't just see roads as infrastructure expenses, he saw them as strategic investments that would generate economic returns for decades or centuries. He was right. Many of the roads built during his reign continued to generate economic value for over 1,000 years. The Roman approach to aqueduct construction was equally strategic. These weren't just engineering projects, they were economic development initiatives that enabled cities to grow larger, support more economic activity, and generate more tax revenue. By providing reliable water supplies, the aqueducts enabled the development of manufacturing, commerce, and services that wouldn't have been possible otherwise. The Romans also developed sophisticated approaches to what we would now call technology transfer, the process of spreading innovations throughout the organization to maximize their economic impact. When Roman engineers developed new construction techniques in one province, those techniques were quickly shared with engineers in other provinces. When Roman administrators developed new management practices in one region, those practices were adapted and implemented in other regions. This systematic approach to innovation and knowledge sharing created what modern business theorists call organizational learning, the ability of an organization to continuously improve its capabilities and performance by learning from experience and sharing knowledge across different parts of the organization. Marcus actively promoted this organizational learning through his travels throughout the empire and his emphasis on communication and knowledge sharing among administrators. He understood that the empire's competitive advantages came not just from its size or resources, but from its ability to learn faster and adapt more quickly than its competitors. The cumulative effect of all these innovations in organization, finance, logistics, human resources, technology, and leadership was the creation of what modern economists call sustainable competitive advantages. The Roman Empire wasn't just larger or more powerful than its competitors. It was fundamentally more efficient, more adaptable, and more capable of creating value for all its stakeholders. These competitive advantages enabled the empire to thrive for centuries, even when facing challenges that would have destroyed less well-organized societies. The plague that devastated much of the known world in the 2nd century AD weakened the Roman Empire but didn't destroy it. The barbarian invasions that threatened the empire's borders were contained and eventually absorbed. The economic disruptions that periodically affected trade and commerce were managed without causing systemic collapse. This resilience wasn't just the result of military strength or natural resources. It was the result of organizational capabilities and management practices that enabled the empire to adapt to changing conditions while maintaining its core strengths and values. But what really set Marcus Aurelius apart was how he approached the human resources challenge of managing this vast organization. The Roman Empire employed millions of people in various capacities: soldiers, administrators, engineers, teachers, judges, tax collectors, and countless others. Managing this workforce required innovations in training, promotion, compensation, and organizational culture that were centuries ahead of their time. The Romans created the cursus honorum, a merit-based career advancement system that allowed talented individuals to rise through the ranks regardless of their birth circumstances. This wasn't just progressive for its time, it was essential for managing an empire that spanned multiple continents and cultures. You couldn't run an organization this complex using only people from one city or one social class. You needed the best talent from everywhere, and you needed systems to identify, develop, and promote that talent. Marcus Aurelius took this approach even further. He believed that leadership was fundamentally about service, not being served, but serving others. This wasn't just philosophical idealism, it was practical business strategy. In an organization as vast and complex as the Roman Empire, you couldn't micromanage from the center. You needed leaders at every level who were committed to the mission, who understood the values, and who could make good decisions independently. But Marcus's concept of servant leadership went far beyond just delegating authority or empowering subordinates. He understood that true leadership required creating conditions where people could do their best work, where they felt valued and supported, and where they could see how their individual contributions connected to larger purposes and objectives. This understanding came from his deep study of Stoic philosophy, but it was refined and tested through years of practical experience managing the most complex organization in human history. Marcus learned that people perform best when they understand not just what they're supposed to do, but why they're doing it, and how it contributes to something meaningful and worthwhile. He implemented what we would now call purpose-driven leadership, an approach that connects individual roles and responsibilities to larger organizational missions and values. Roman administrators weren't just collecting taxes or enforcing laws. They were building civilization, creating prosperity, and contributing to the welfare of millions of people. Roman soldiers weren't just following orders or fighting battles. They were protecting families, defending communities, and preserving the conditions that enabled human flourishing. This sense of purpose wasn't just motivational rhetoric. It was practical psychology that enabled people to maintain high performance even under difficult conditions. When Roman administrators faced challenging situations or difficult decisions, they could draw on their understanding of the larger purpose to guide their choices and sustain their efforts. Marcus modeled this purpose-driven approach in his own leadership. He didn't just issue commands or make decisions. He explained his reasoning, shared his thinking, and helped others understand how their work contributed to the empire's overall success. He treated his subordinates as partners in a shared enterprise rather than just employees following orders. This approach created what modern organizational psychologists call intrinsic motivation, the kind of motivation that comes from finding meaning and satisfaction in the work itself rather than just from external rewards or punishments. People who are intrinsically motivated perform better, learn faster, and persist longer in the face of challenges than people who are motivated only by external factors. The results were remarkable. Roman administrators throughout the empire demonstrated levels of initiative, creativity, and commitment that enabled the organization to function effectively despite the enormous challenges of managing operations across vast distances with primitive communication technologies. They didn't just follow procedures, they adapted to local conditions, solved problems creatively, and took initiative to improve their operations and serve their communities better. This is a crucial lesson for modern entrepreneurs. Sustainable business success requires more than just good systems and processes. It requires creating organizational cultures where people are motivated by purpose and meaning, not just by paychecks and promotions. It requires leaders who understand that their primary job is to enable others to do their best work, not just to direct and control their activities. Marcus's approach to decision-making was equally sophisticated and equally relevant to modern business leaders. He developed what he called the three disciplines of Stoic leadership: the discipline of perception, the discipline of action, and the discipline of will. These weren't just philosophical concepts, they were practical frameworks for making better decisions under pressure and uncertainty. The discipline of perception involves seeing situations clearly and accurately without being distorted by emotions, biases, or wishful thinking. For Marcus, this meant gathering the best available information, consulting with experts, considering multiple perspectives, and acknowledging uncertainty rather than pretending to have more knowledge or control than he actually possessed. This discipline is crucial for entrepreneurs because business decisions are often made under conditions of incomplete information and high uncertainty. The entrepreneurs who succeed are those who can see market conditions, competitive dynamics, and customer needs clearly, without being misled by their own hopes, fears, or preconceptions. Marcus practiced this discipline rigorously throughout his reign. When the Antonine Plague struck the empire, he didn't minimize the threat or hope it would resolve itself quickly. He gathered the best medical knowledge available, consulted with physicians and administrators throughout the empire, and developed response plans based on realistic assessments of the challenge rather than optimistic assumptions about quick solutions. When barbarian tribes threatened the empire's northern borders, he didn't dismiss the threat or assume that Roman military superiority would automatically prevail. He studied the enemy's capabilities and motivations, analyzed the strategic situation carefully, and developed military and diplomatic strategies based on accurate understanding of the challenges rather than overconfidence in Roman power. This discipline of perception enabled Marcus to make better decisions because he was working with better information and more realistic assessments of the situations he faced. He didn't waste time and resources on strategies based on wishful thinking or false assumptions. He focused his efforts on approaches that had realistic chances of success, given the actual conditions he was dealing with. The discipline of action involves focusing energy and resources on what you can actually control and influence, rather than wasting time worrying about factors beyond your power. This doesn't mean ignoring external conditions or failing to plan for contingencies. It means recognizing the difference between what you can control and what you can't, and directing your efforts accordingly. For entrepreneurs, this discipline is essential because business success depends on many factors that are completely outside your control: market conditions, competitor actions, economic cycles, regulatory changes, technological developments, and countless other variables. The entrepreneurs who succeed are those who acknowledge these external factors but focus their primary attention on what they can actually influence: their products, their teams, their strategies, their execution, and their own capabilities and performance. Marcus applied this discipline consistently throughout his reign. During the plague crisis, he couldn't control the disease itself, but he could control the empire's response to it. He focused his efforts on what was within his power: organizing medical care, maintaining food distribution, preserving social order, and communicating effectively with administrators throughout the empire. During military campaigns, he couldn't control enemy actions or guarantee victory, but he could control Roman preparation, strategy, and execution. He focused on training his troops, developing effective tactics, securing supply lines, and maintaining morale rather than worrying about factors beyond his influence. This discipline enabled Marcus to be more effective because he wasn't dissipating his energy on things he couldn't change. He concentrated his efforts on areas where he could make a real difference, which maximized his impact and improved his results. The discipline of will involves maintaining commitment to your values and long-term objectives, even when faced with short-term pressures, setbacks, or temptations. This is perhaps the most challenging discipline because it requires making decisions that may be unpopular in the moment but serve the greater good over time. For entrepreneurs, this discipline is crucial because business building involves many situations where short-term and long-term interests conflict. You might be tempted to cut corners on product quality to improve immediate profits, to treat employees poorly to reduce costs, to make exaggerated marketing claims to increase sales, or to abandon your values when facing competitive pressure. The entrepreneurs who build lasting wealth are those who maintain their commitment to value creation and ethical behavior even under pressure. They understand that sustainable competitive advantages come from superior capabilities and genuine value creation, not from temporary tactics or ethical shortcuts. Marcus demonstrated this discipline throughout his reign, especially during the most challenging periods. When the plague created enormous pressure to abandon expensive public health measures, he maintained his commitment to protecting the empire's citizens. When military threats created pressure to divert resources from infrastructure and education, he maintained his commitment to long-term prosperity. When political enemies created pressure to abandon his principles of justice and mercy, he maintained his commitment to virtuous leadership. These three disciplines work together to create what Marcus called the good life, a life of meaning, purpose, and sustainable success. For entrepreneurs, this means building businesses that create genuine value, provide personal fulfillment, and contribute to the greater good. But understanding these disciplines intellectually isn't enough. You need practical frameworks for applying them to real business situations. Marcus developed what he called the evening review, a daily practice of reflecting on decisions, analyzing outcomes, and planning improvements for the future. Every evening, Marcus would spend time reviewing the day's events and decisions. He would ask himself three questions. What decisions did I make today that aligned with my values and long-term objectives? What decisions did I make that I would handle differently if I had another chance? What did I learn today that will help me make better decisions tomorrow? This practice enabled Marcus to continuously improve his decision-making capabilities and leadership effectiveness. He didn't just react to events as they happened. He learned from his experiences and applied those lessons to future situations. Modern entrepreneurs who adopt similar practices consistently outperform those who don't. The business building process involves constant learning and adaptation, and the entrepreneurs who learn fastest from their experiences are those who build the most successful companies. The evening review should include three components: decision analysis, outcome assessment, and lesson identification. Decision analysis involves examining the major decisions you made during the day and evaluating whether they aligned with your values and long-term objectives. Outcome assessment involves analyzing the results of your decisions and actions, both positive and negative. Lesson identification involves extracting insights from your experiences that will help you make better decisions in the future. This daily practice creates what Marcus called the discipline of desire, the ability to want what you have rather than constantly chasing what you don't have. This doesn't mean being satisfied with mediocrity or giving up on ambitious goals. It means building wealth and success from a foundation of contentment and purpose, rather than from anxiety, envy, or desperation. Modern neuroscience has confirmed what Marcus understood intuitively. Decision-making quality deteriorates when driven by fear, greed, or other intense emotions. The most successful entrepreneurs make their best decisions from a state of calm confidence, clear thinking, and long-term perspective. They're motivated by purpose and opportunity rather than by desperation or comparison with others. This is why Marcus's approach to wealth building is so powerful in today's economy. In a world of constant change, information overload, and competitive pressure, the ability to maintain perspective, focus on fundamentals, and make principled decisions has become the ultimate competitive advantage. But the real genius of Marcus's approach wasn't just in the individual practices and disciplines he developed. It was in how he integrated them into a comprehensive system for sustainable leadership and wealth creation. He understood that lasting success requires alignment between personal values, business strategy, and organizational culture. This integration is what modern business theorists call authentic leadership, leadership that is consistent with your values, honest about your capabilities and limitations, and focused on creating value for others rather than just advancing your own interests. Authentic leaders build stronger relationships, create more engaged teams, and achieve better long-term results than leaders who rely primarily on position, power, or manipulation. Marcus achieved this integration through what he called the view from above, a practice of regularly stepping back from immediate concerns and considering his decisions and actions from a broader perspective. He would imagine how his choices would look to future generations, how they would affect people throughout the empire, and how they aligned with his deepest values and convictions. This practice enabled Marcus to maintain perspective during crises, make decisions that served the long-term good even when they were difficult in the short term, and build an empire that lasted for centuries after his death. It's a practice that modern entrepreneurs can adapt to build businesses that create lasting value and meaningful impact. The view from above involves three components: temporal perspective, stakeholder perspective, and values perspective. Temporal perspective means considering how your decisions will look in 5, 10, or 20 years, rather than just focusing on immediate results. Stakeholder perspective means considering how your decisions will affect all the people who are impacted by your business: customers, employees, investors, communities, and society as a whole. Values perspective means ensuring that your decisions align with your deepest convictions about what's right and what's important. This integrated approach to leadership and decision-making is what enabled Marcus to build not just wealth, but sustainable wealth that created value for generations. It's what enabled him to manage the most complex organization in human history while maintaining his integrity and his commitment to the greater good. And it's what modern entrepreneurs need to build businesses that thrive in an increasingly complex and rapidly changing world. Now let's examine how modern billionaires and successful entrepreneurs are applying Marcus's principles to build wealth in today's economy. The examples are remarkable because they demonstrate that these ancient principles work just as well in our digital, globalized world as they did in the Roman Empire 2,000 years ago. Warren Buffett is perhaps the most obvious example of a modern leader applying Stoic principles to wealth building. Buffett's investment philosophy is essentially Marcus Aurelius translated into modern financial markets. Like Marcus, Buffett focuses on what he can control, selecting good companies at reasonable prices while ignoring what he can't control: short-term market fluctuations, economic cycles, and media commentary. Buffett's famous advice to be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful is pure Stoic thinking. It reflects the discipline of perception, seeing market conditions clearly without being influenced by crowd psychology or emotional reactions. When the 2008 financial crisis created panic in financial markets, Buffett didn't get caught up in the fear. Instead, he saw opportunity and invested billions in companies like Goldman Sachs and General Electric at prices that generated enormous returns as markets recovered. But Buffett's Stoicism goes deeper than just investment strategy. His approach to business management reflects Marcus's emphasis on long-term value creation and stakeholder capitalism. Berkshire Hathaway's subsidiary companies are managed with minimal interference from headquarters, reflecting the Roman principle of subsidiarity that Marcus perfected. Local managers are given significant autonomy to run their businesses, but they operate within a framework of shared values and accountability measures. Buffett's annual letters to shareholders are remarkably similar to Marcus's Meditations in their emphasis on principles, long-term thinking, and honest self-assessment. Like Marcus, Buffett regularly acknowledges his mistakes, analyzes what he learned from them, and explains how those lessons will influence future decisions. Jeff Bezos built Amazon using principles that Marcus would immediately recognize. Bezos' famous Day One mentality reflects the Stoic emphasis on continuous improvement and adaptation. Like Marcus, Bezos understood that sustainable competitive advantages come from building superior capabilities and creating genuine value for customers, not from exploiting temporary market conditions or competitive weaknesses. Amazon's customer obsession is essentially stakeholder capitalism applied to e-commerce. Bezos understood that by focusing relentlessly on customer value, Amazon would create a virtuous cycle where satisfied customers would drive growth, which would enable further investments in customer value, which would drive more growth. This long-term thinking enabled Amazon to sacrifice short-term profits for long-term competitive advantages in ways that confused Wall Street analysts, but created enormous wealth for shareholders. Bezos' approach to crisis management during Amazon's early years reflects Marcus's discipline of will. When critics questioned Amazon's profitability and stock prices collapsed during the dot-com crash, Bezos didn't panic or abandon his long-term strategy. He maintained his commitment to building infrastructure and capabilities that would create sustainable competitive advantages, even when it was unpopular with investors and analysts. The results speak for themselves. Amazon became one of the most valuable companies in history by applying principles that Marcus used to manage the Roman Empire: focus on long-term value creation, invest in capabilities and infrastructure, maintain stakeholder alignment, and make decisions based on principles rather than short-term pressures. Tim Cook's leadership of Apple demonstrates how Stoic principles apply to crisis management and organizational leadership. When Cook took over from Steve Jobs, he faced enormous pressure to prove that Apple could continue to innovate and grow without its legendary founder. Instead of trying to imitate Jobs or make dramatic changes to prove his leadership, Cook applied what Marcus would call the discipline of action, focusing on what he could control while acknowledging what he couldn't. Cook couldn't control external expectations or media commentary about his leadership, but he could control Apple's execution, its product development processes, and its organizational culture. He focused on strengthening Apple's supply chain, expanding its global operations, and maintaining its commitment to product quality and customer experience. When the COVID-19 pandemic disrupted global supply chains and forced the closure of Apple stores worldwide, Cook's response reflected Marcus's approach to crisis management. He didn't panic or make desperate short-term decisions. Instead, he focused on what Apple could control, adapting its operations to new conditions, supporting its employees and customers, and maintaining its long-term strategic objectives. Cook's emphasis on privacy and environmental responsibility reflects Marcus's understanding that sustainable business success requires creating value for all stakeholders, not just shareholders. By taking positions on social and environmental issues that align with Apple's values, Cook has strengthened the company's brand and customer loyalty while attracting top talent who want to work for a company that stands for something meaningful. Naval Ravikant, the entrepreneur and investor, explicitly credits Stoic philosophy with shaping his approach to wealth building. Ravikant argues that the Stoic emphasis on internal locus of control, long-term thinking, and value-based decision-making creates better business outcomes than approaches based on external validation, short-term optimization, or purely financial metrics. Ravikant's concept of specific knowledge, skills and insights that can't be easily replicated or automated reflects Marcus's understanding that sustainable competitive advantages come from developing unique capabilities rather than just exploiting market opportunities. Like Marcus, Ravikant emphasizes the importance of continuous learning, self-improvement, and character development as foundations for business success. Ravikant's approach to angel investing demonstrates how Stoic principles apply to modern venture capital. Instead of trying to predict which startups will succeed based on market trends or financial projections, Ravikant focuses on what he can evaluate: the character and capabilities of founders, the quality of their thinking, and their commitment to creating genuine value. This approach has generated exceptional returns because it focuses on factors that actually drive long-term success rather than superficial indicators that are easy to measure but don't predict outcomes. Ray Dalio built Bridgewater Associates, the world's largest hedge fund, using principles that are remarkably similar to Marcus's approach to imperial administration. Dalio's emphasis on radical transparency, systematic decision-making, and principles-based management reflects the same philosophical foundation that Marcus brought to running the Roman Empire. Bridgewater's culture of radical transparency is essentially the discipline of perception applied to organizational management. Like Marcus, Dalio understood that good decisions require accurate information and honest assessment of reality, even when that reality is uncomfortable or inconvenient. Bridgewater's meetings are recorded, feedback is given directly and publicly, and employees are expected to challenge each other's thinking regardless of hierarchy or seniority. Dalio's principles, the systematic approach to decision-making that he developed over decades of managing Bridgewater, reflects Marcus's understanding that sustainable success requires consistent application of proven principles rather than ad hoc decision-making based on emotions or immediate circumstances. The results have been extraordinary. Bridgewater has generated more profits for its investors than any other hedge fund in history, while maintaining a culture that attracts top talent and creates genuine value for its stakeholders. This success demonstrates that Marcus's principles work just as well in modern financial markets as they did in ancient imperial administration. But these examples represent just the tip of the iceberg. Throughout the business world, entrepreneurs and leaders who apply Stoic principles consistently outperform those who don't. They build stronger companies, create more sustainable competitive advantages, and generate better long-term returns for all their stakeholders. The key insight is that these modern leaders aren't just copying Marcus's tactics or strategies. They're applying his fundamental approach to the relationship between character and business success. They understand that sustainable wealth building requires more than just intelligence, hard work, or even good strategy. It requires character, the mental and emotional capabilities that enable you to make good decisions consistently over time, especially under pressure. This is why Marcus's wealth-building principles are so powerful and why they're more relevant today than ever. In our hyper-connected, rapidly changing economy, the ability to maintain perspective, focus on fundamentals, and make principled decisions under pressure has become the ultimate competitive advantage. The entrepreneurs who master these capabilities build businesses that thrive regardless of changing external conditions. They create value that lasts, relationships that endure, and legacies that inspire future generations. They don't just accumulate money, they build capabilities, contribute to society, and find meaning and purpose in their work. But understanding these examples isn't enough. You need practical frameworks for applying Marcus's principles to your own business building. Let me give you the exact implementation system that translates ancient wisdom into modern wealth creation. The Marcus Aurelius wealth building system has 5 core components: morning preparation, decision frameworks, crisis management protocols, stakeholder alignment strategies, and evening review practices. Each component builds on the others to create a comprehensive approach to sustainable business success. Morning preparation is based on Marcus's daily practice of setting intentions and preparing mentally for the challenges ahead. Every morning, Marcus would spend time reviewing his priorities, anticipating likely challenges, and mentally rehearsing how he would respond to various scenarios. This wasn't just philosophical reflection, it was practical preparation that enabled him to make better decisions throughout the day. For modern entrepreneurs, morning preparation should include three elements: priority setting, challenge anticipation, and principle reinforcement. Priority setting involves identifying the most important objectives for the day and ensuring that your time and energy are focused on activities that advance those objectives. Challenge anticipation involves thinking through likely obstacles or difficulties and preparing your responses in advance. Principle reinforcement involves reminding yourself of your core values and long-term objectives so that your daily decisions align with your deeper purposes. This morning practice should take 15 to 20 minutes and should be done consistently every day. The entrepreneurs who maintain this practice report better decision-making, reduced stress, and improved long-term results compared to those who just react to whatever happens during the day. The decision frameworks are based on Marcus's three disciplines: perception, action, and will. Every significant business decision should be evaluated using these three lenses to ensure that you're making choices that serve your long-term objectives and align with your values. The perception framework involves gathering accurate information, considering multiple perspectives, and acknowledging uncertainty. Before making any important decision, ask yourself, what information do I need to make this decision well? Who should I consult to get different perspectives? What assumptions am I making that might be wrong? What don't I know that could affect the outcome? The action framework involves focusing on what you can control and influence. For every decision, ask yourself, what aspects of this situation can I actually control? What can I influence but not control? What is completely outside my power? How can I maximize my impact on the factors I can influence while accepting the factors I can't control? The will framework involves ensuring that your decisions align with your values and long-term objectives. Ask yourself, does this decision align with my core values? Does it serve my long-term objectives even if it's difficult in the short term? Will I be proud of this decision in 5 or 10 years? Does it create value for all my stakeholders, not just for me? These frameworks should be applied to all significant business decisions: hiring key employees, choosing strategic partners, making major investments, entering new markets, or responding to competitive threats. The entrepreneurs who use these frameworks consistently make better decisions and achieve better long-term results. Crisis management protocols are based on Marcus's response to the Antonine Plague and other major challenges during his reign. Every business faces crises, and how you respond to those crises often determines your long-term success or failure. The Marcus Aurelius Crisis Management Protocol has 5 steps: accept reality completely, focus on what you can control, preserve core assets, communicate transparently, and maintain long-term perspective. Accept reality completely means acknowledging the full scope and severity of the crisis without minimizing it, or hoping it will resolve itself quickly. Focus on what you can control means directing your energy toward factors you can actually influence rather than worrying about external conditions. Preserve core assets means protecting the people, capabilities, and resources that are essential for long-term survival and recovery. Communicate transparently means providing honest, regular updates to all stakeholders about the situation and your response. Maintain long-term perspective means making decisions that serve your long-term objectives even if they're difficult in the short term. This protocol should be implemented whenever your business faces significant challenges: economic downturns, competitive threats, regulatory changes, technology disruptions, or internal crises. The entrepreneurs who follow this protocol consistently navigate crises more successfully and often emerge stronger than before. Stakeholder alignment strategies are based on Marcus's understanding that sustainable wealth creation requires creating value for all stakeholders, not just extracting value for yourself. This means building businesses that genuinely serve customers, treat employees well, provide fair returns to investors, and contribute to communities. The stakeholder alignment framework involves identifying all the people who are affected by your business, understanding their needs and interests, and designing your business model to create value for all of them. This isn't just ethical idealism, it's practical business strategy that creates sustainable competitive advantages and reduces long-term risks. For customers, this means focusing on genuine value creation rather than just sales and marketing. For employees, this means creating opportunities for growth, development, and meaningful contribution. For investors, this means generating sustainable returns through value creation rather than financial engineering. For communities, this means contributing to local economic development and social well-being. The entrepreneurs who master stakeholder alignment build stronger, more resilient businesses that attract better customers, employees, and investors. They create virtuous cycles where success creates the conditions for further success. Evening review practices are based on Marcus's daily habit of reflecting on decisions, analyzing outcomes, and planning improvements. This practice is crucial for continuous improvement and long-term success because it enables you to learn from your experiences and apply those lessons to future situations. The evening review should include 3 components: decision analysis, outcome assessment, and lesson identification. Decision analysis involves examining the major decisions you made during the day and evaluating whether they aligned with your values and long-term objectives. Outcome assessment involves analyzing the results of your decisions and actions, both positive and negative. Lesson identification involves extracting insights from your experiences that will help you make better decisions in the future. This practice should take 10 to 15 minutes each evening and should be done consistently. The entrepreneurs who maintain this practice continuously improve their decision-making capabilities and achieve better long-term results. These 5 components work together to create a comprehensive system for sustainable wealth building that is based on character, principles, and long-term value creation rather than just tactics, luck, or market timing. The entrepreneurs who implement this system consistently outperform those who rely on other approaches because they build businesses that are fundamentally stronger, more adaptable, and more aligned with the interests of all their stakeholders. But implementing these systems is just the beginning. The real power of Marcus's approach comes from understanding how these principles create what modern economists call compound effects, small improvements that build on each other over time to create extraordinary results. Marcus understood that sustainable wealth creation isn't about making one brilliant decision or having one great insight. It's about making consistently good decisions over long periods of time, building capabilities that compound, and creating systems that generate value automatically without requiring constant intervention. This understanding is crucial for modern entrepreneurs because it changes how you think about business building. Instead of looking for quick wins or dramatic breakthroughs, you focus on building foundations that will generate value for decades. Instead of optimizing for immediate results, you optimize for long-term sustainability and growth. The compound effect works in several dimensions simultaneously. First, there's the compound effect of learning and capability development. Every challenge you face and overcome makes you better equipped to handle future challenges. Every skill you develop makes it easier to develop related skills. Every relationship you build creates opportunities for future relationships. Marcus experienced this throughout his reign. The crisis management skills he developed during the Antonine Plague served him well during the Marcomannic Wars. The administrative reforms he implemented in one province were adapted and improved in other provinces. The leadership principles he developed through practical experience became more refined and effective over time. Modern entrepreneurs who understand this principle invest heavily in their own development and in building organizational capabilities that will compound over time. They see every challenge as an opportunity to build strength, every setback as a chance to develop resilience, and every success as a foundation for future achievements. Second, there's the compound effect of reputation and relationships. Marcus understood that trust and credibility are built slowly through consistent actions over time, but once established, they create enormous advantages in terms of cooperation, support, and opportunity. Throughout his reign, Marcus invested in building relationships with provincial governors, military commanders, senators, and citizens throughout the empire. He didn't just issue orders, he explained his reasoning, listened to feedback, and demonstrated genuine concern for the welfare of others. This investment in relationships paid enormous dividends when he needed support during crises or cooperation for major initiatives. Modern entrepreneurs who understand this principle invest heavily in building genuine relationships with customers, employees, investors, partners, and communities. They understand that these relationships are assets that appreciate over time and that create competitive advantages that can't be easily replicated. Third, there's the compound effect of systems and processes. Marcus inherited sophisticated administrative systems from his predecessors, but he continuously refined and improved them throughout his reign. Each improvement made the entire system more efficient and effective, which created resources that could be invested in further improvements. The Roman road system is a perfect example. Each new road made the entire network more valuable by creating new routes and reducing travel times. The investment in roads generated economic activity that produced tax revenues that funded more roads, creating a virtuous cycle that continued for centuries. Modern entrepreneurs who understand this principle focus on building systems and processes that improve automatically over time. They invest in technology, training, and organizational capabilities that create compound returns rather than just immediate benefits. Fourth, there's the compound effect of value creation and stakeholder alignment. Marcus understood that creating genuine value for others creates loyalty, support, and opportunities that compound over time. Provinces that prospered under Roman rule became more committed to the empire and more willing to contribute to its success. Modern entrepreneurs who focus on creating genuine value for all their stakeholders build businesses that become stronger and more valuable over time. Satisfied customers become advocates who attract new customers. Engaged employees become more productive and help attract better talent. Successful investors become sources of additional capital and strategic support. The key to activating these compound effects is what Marcus called the long view, the ability to make decisions based on their long-term consequences rather than just their immediate effects. This requires developing what modern psychologists call delayed gratification, the ability to sacrifice immediate rewards for larger future benefits. Marcus demonstrated this capability throughout his reign. He invested enormous resources in infrastructure projects that wouldn't generate returns for decades. He implemented administrative reforms that were expensive in the short term, but created efficiencies that lasted for centuries. He maintained expensive military forces during peacetime to prevent wars that would have been far more costly. Modern entrepreneurs who develop this capability consistently outperform those who optimize for immediate results. They invest in research and development that may not pay off for years. They build organizational capabilities that are expensive initially, but create competitive advantages over time. They maintain high standards for product quality and customer service, even when it reduces short-term profits. But perhaps most importantly, Marcus understood that sustainable wealth creation requires what he called the discipline of desire, the ability to find satisfaction and meaning in the process of building, rather than just in the outcomes you achieve. This discipline is crucial because business building is inherently uncertain and often frustrating. You can do everything right and still face setbacks due to factors beyond your control. You can work incredibly hard and still see competitors achieve faster growth or greater recognition. You can build something valuable and still face criticism or misunderstanding from others. The entrepreneurs who succeed over the long term are those who find meaning and satisfaction in the work itself, not just in the external rewards it produces. They enjoy the process of solving problems, building teams, creating value, and contributing to something larger than themselves. Marcus found this satisfaction in his role as emperor, despite the enormous burdens and challenges it involved. He wrote in his Meditations about finding joy in doing his duty well, regardless of external recognition or reward. He understood that the greatest satisfaction comes from knowing that you've contributed your best efforts to something worthwhile. This perspective is especially important for entrepreneurs because business building involves many activities that don't produce immediate gratification, dealing with difficult customers, managing cash flow problems, handling employee conflicts, navigating regulatory requirements, and countless other challenges that are necessary but not inherently enjoyable. The entrepreneurs who thrive are those who develop what Marcus called amor fati, love of fate, or the ability to embrace whatever circumstances they face as opportunities for growth and contribution. They don't just tolerate the difficulties of business building, they find meaning and purpose in overcoming those difficulties. This doesn't mean being passive or accepting poor results. It means approaching challenges with curiosity rather than frustration, seeing setbacks as learning opportunities rather than failures, and maintaining commitment to your values and objectives regardless of external circumstances. The practical application of this principle involves developing what modern psychologists call intrinsic motivation, motivation that comes from the satisfaction of doing meaningful work rather than just from external rewards. This requires connecting your business activities to larger purposes and values that provide meaning beyond just financial success. Marcus connected his imperial duties to his philosophical commitment to virtue and service. Every administrative decision, every military campaign, every policy initiative was an opportunity to practice wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. This connection between daily work and deeper values provided meaning and motivation that sustained him through the most difficult periods of his reign. Modern entrepreneurs can develop similar connections by clarifying their values and ensuring that their business activities align with those values. If you value creativity, build a business that enables creative expression. If you value service, build a business that genuinely helps others. If you value learning, build a business that requires continuous growth and development. This alignment between values and activities creates what psychologists call flow, a state of deep engagement and satisfaction that comes from doing work that feels meaningful and challenging. Entrepreneurs who achieve this alignment consistently outperform those who are motivated primarily by external factors because they maintain higher levels of energy, creativity, and persistence over time. The ultimate goal of the Marcus Aurelius approach to wealth building isn't just financial success, though that's certainly important. The goal is what Marcus called eudaimonia, human flourishing, or the good life. This means building wealth in ways that contribute to your own development as a person and to the welfare of others. Marcus achieved this integration throughout his reign. He built enormous wealth for the Roman Empire while maintaining his philosophical principles and contributing to the welfare of millions of people. He demonstrated that it's possible to be successful in worldly terms while also being successful in human terms. Modern entrepreneurs who apply Marcus's principles can achieve similar integration. They can build financially successful businesses while also developing their own capabilities, contributing to their communities, and creating value for all their stakeholders. They can accumulate wealth while also accumulating wisdom, relationships, and meaning. This integration is what distinguishes truly successful entrepreneurs from those who achieve only financial success. It's what enables them to maintain motivation and satisfaction over long periods of time. It's what creates legacies that inspire others and contribute to human progress. The choice is yours. You can continue pursuing wealth through conventional approaches that focus primarily on tactics, competition, and short-term optimization. Or you can adopt the approach that has created the most sustainable wealth in human history, an approach based on character, principles, and long-term value creation. Marcus Aurelius showed us that the greatest wealth isn't just financial, it's the wealth of character, capability, and contribution that enables you to build something truly lasting. The question isn't whether you can afford to apply these principles to your business. The question is whether you can afford not to. The empire you build may not span 3 continents or last 1,000 years, but it can embody the same principles that made Marcus Aurelius not just the richest man in history, but one of the most respected leaders in human history. The choice, as Marcus would say, is entirely within your control. But remember, understanding these principles intellectually isn't enough. You must apply them consistently, day after day, decision after decision, until they become part of who you are rather than just ideas you think about. Marcus didn't become a great leader by reading philosophy, he became a great leader by living philosophy. The same is true for you. You won't build lasting wealth by just understanding these principles. You'll build lasting wealth by embodying them in everything you do. Start today. Start with the next decision you make. Start with the next conversation you have. Start with the next challenge you face. The Roman Empire lasted for over 1,000 years after Marcus's death because he built it on foundations that were stronger than any individual leader or temporary circumstance. You can build a business empire that lasts for generations by applying the same principles to your own work. The world needs more leaders who understand that true wealth comes from creating value for others, not just extracting value for themselves. The world needs more entrepreneurs who build businesses that contribute to human flourishing, not just to their own bank accounts. The world needs more people who understand that character is the foundation of sustainable success. Marcus Aurelius gave us the blueprint. The question is whether you have the wisdom to follow it and the courage to apply it in your own life and work. The choice, as always, is yours. These principles weren't just philosophical abstractions for Marcus. He applied them to concrete business challenges throughout his reign. When the Antonine Plague struck the empire in 166 AD, killing an estimated 30% of the population in some areas, Marcus didn't panic or make desperate short-term decisions. He applied Stoic principles to crisis management in ways that modern business leaders are still studying and copying. First, he accepted the reality of the situation completely. He didn't waste time denying the severity of the plague or hoping it would just go away. He gathered the best medical knowledge available, consulted with experts, and developed a comprehensive response plan based on facts, not wishful thinking. Second, he focused on what he could control. He couldn't stop the plague, but he could control the empire's response to it. He implemented public health measures, reorganized supply chains to ensure food distribution continued, and maintained military readiness despite massive personnel losses. Third, he maintained his commitment to the empire's long-term values and objectives. He didn't use the crisis as an excuse to abandon Roman principles of justice, mercy, or good governance. Instead, he saw the crisis as a test of those principles and an opportunity to demonstrate their value under pressure. The results speak for themselves. While the plague devastated much of the known world, the Roman Empire not only survived but emerged stronger. Marcus used the crisis to implement administrative reforms, strengthen the military, and improve the empire's resilience against future shocks. Modern billionaires and business leaders study Marcus Aurelius because his principles work just as well in today's economy as they did 2,000 years ago. Warren Buffett's investment philosophy is essentially Stoic. Focus on what you can control, picking good companies. Ignore what you can't control, short-term market fluctuations, and maintain a long-term perspective based on fundamental values rather than momentary emotions. Jeff Bezos built Amazon using Marcus's approach to long-term thinking. When critics questioned Amazon's profitability in its early years, Bezos consistently focused on long-term value creation rather than short-term financial metrics. He was willing to sacrifice immediate profits to build the infrastructure and capabilities that would create sustainable competitive advantages over time. Tim Cook has applied Marcus's crisis management principles to navigate supply chain disruptions, trade wars, and global pandemics. Like Marcus, Cook focuses on what Apple can control: product quality, innovation, and customer experience, while adapting to external circumstances without compromising the company's core values. Naval Ravikant, the entrepreneur and investor, explicitly credits Stoic philosophy with shaping his approach to wealth building. He argues that the Stoic emphasis on internal locus of control, long-term thinking, and value-based decision-making creates better business outcomes than approaches based on external validation, short-term optimization, or purely financial metrics. Ray Dalio built Bridgewater Associates, the world's largest hedge fund, using principles that are remarkably similar to Marcus's approach to imperial administration. Dalio's emphasis on radical transparency, systematic decision-making, and principles-based management reflects the same philosophical foundation that Marcus brought to running the Roman Empire. But here's what most people miss when they study these modern examples. They're not just copying Marcus's tactics or strategies. They're applying his fundamental approach to the relationship between character and business success. Marcus understood something that modern research has confirmed. Sustainable wealth building requires more than just intelligence, hard work, or even good strategy. It requires character. Character, in the Stoic sense, isn't just about being a good person, though that's important. It's about developing the mental and emotional capabilities that enable you to make good decisions consistently over time, especially under pressure. It's about building the internal resources that allow you to stay focused on long-term objectives when everyone around you is panicking about short-term problems. This is why Marcus's wealth-building principles are so powerful and why they're more relevant today than ever. In our hyper-connected, rapidly changing economy, the ability to maintain perspective, focus on fundamentals, and make principled decisions under pressure has become the ultimate competitive advantage. Let me give you Marcus's 5 core wealth-building principles and show you exactly how to apply them in today's business environment. Principle number 1. What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee. This is stakeholder capitalism 1,800 years before the term was invented. Marcus understood that sustainable wealth creation requires creating value for all stakeholders, not just extracting value for yourself. In practical terms, this means building businesses that genuinely serve customers, treat employees well, contribute to communities, and create value for society. This isn't just ethical idealism, it's smart business strategy. Companies that focus solely on short-term profit extraction tend to create unsustainable competitive positions. They may succeed for a while, but they eventually face customer backlash, employee turnover, regulatory pressure, or competitive threats from companies that offer better value propositions. Marcus applied this principle to imperial administration by focusing on the long-term prosperity of the provinces rather than just extracting maximum tax revenue. He invested in infrastructure, education, and legal systems that increased the empire's overall productivity and wealth-generating capacity. This created a virtuous cycle. More prosperous provinces generated more tax revenue, which funded further investments in prosperity-enhancing infrastructure. Modern companies like Patagonia, Costco, and Southwest Airlines have built sustainable competitive advantages by applying this principle. They focus on creating genuine value for customers, employees, and communities, which generates customer loyalty, employee engagement, and positive brand reputation that translates into long-term financial success. Principle number 2. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This is perhaps the most practical business principle ever articulated. Every entrepreneur faces obstacles, setbacks, and challenges. The difference between those who build lasting wealth and those who don't is how they respond to these impediments. Marcus taught that obstacles aren't just inevitable, they're opportunities. Every challenge you face in business is a chance to develop new capabilities, discover new opportunities, or gain competitive advantages that wouldn't be available otherwise. The key is to approach obstacles with curiosity rather than frustration, asking, how can this challenge make me stronger? Rather than, why is this happening to me? During the Marcomannic Wars, when barbarian tribes threatened the empire's northern borders, Marcus didn't just see this as a military problem to be solved. He saw it as an opportunity to strengthen the empire's defenses, improve military training and equipment, and develop new strategies for managing frontier regions. The solutions he developed during this crisis strengthened the empire for centuries. Modern entrepreneurs who apply this principle consistently outperform those who don't. When Netflix faced the challenge of declining DVD sales, they didn't just try to optimize their existing business model. They saw the impediment as an opportunity to pioneer streaming technology and content creation. When Tesla faced skepticism about electric vehicles, Elon Musk used that resistance as motivation to prove the superiority of electric technology and build a sustainable competitive advantage. The practical application is straightforward. Whenever you encounter a significant business challenge, spend time analyzing how this challenge might actually be an opportunity in disguise. What new capabilities could you develop? What unmet market needs might this reveal? How could solving this problem create value for customers or competitive advantages for your business? Principle number 3. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This is the foundation of what psychologists now call internal locus of control, and research consistently shows that entrepreneurs with strong internal locus of control build more successful businesses. The principle is simple but profound. You can't control market conditions, competitor actions, economic cycles, or countless other external factors that affect your business. But you can control how you respond to these factors. You can control your strategy, your execution, your team development, your customer relationships, and your own mindset and capabilities. Marcus applied this principle throughout his reign, especially during crises. When the plague struck, he didn't waste energy complaining about the unfairness of the situation or hoping for divine intervention. He focused entirely on what he could control, the empire's response to the crisis. When barbarian tribes invaded, he didn't spend time lamenting the timing or wishing for easier circumstances. He focused on what he could control: military strategy, resource allocation, and leadership development. This principle is especially important for entrepreneurs because business building is inherently uncertain and largely outside your control. You can't control whether customers will buy your product, whether investors will fund your company, whether competitors will enter your market, or whether economic conditions will favor your industry. But you can control the quality of your product, the effectiveness of your marketing, the strength of your team, and your own persistence and adaptability. The practical application is to regularly audit where you're spending your mental and emotional energy. Are you focused on things you can control or things you can't? Are you developing capabilities and strategies that improve your ability to respond to external changes? Or are you just hoping that external conditions will become more favorable? Principle number 4, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. In business terms, this means building competitive advantages through superior value creation rather than trying to destroy competitors through negative tactics. Marcus faced numerous political enemies and military threats throughout his reign. His response was never to adopt their tactics or sink to their level. Instead, he focused on being so much better at governing, so much more effective at creating value for the empire's citizens, that his enemies' attacks became irrelevant. This principle is crucial for entrepreneurs because competitive markets naturally create temptations to engage in negative tactics. Spreading false information about competitors, poaching employees unethically, copying intellectual property, or engaging in price wars that destroy industry profitability. Marcus's approach was different. Compete by being so much better that competitors become irrelevant. Focus on creating so much value for customers that they have no reason to consider alternatives. Build such a strong company culture that the best employees want to work for you. Develop such superior products or services that competitors can't match your value proposition. Companies like Apple, Google, and Amazon have applied this principle to build dominant market positions. Instead of trying to destroy competitors, they focused on creating products and services so superior that competitors became largely irrelevant. They competed through innovation, customer experience, and value creation rather than negative tactics. The practical application is to regularly evaluate your competitive strategy. Are you focused on what competitors are doing wrong or on what you can do better? Are you trying to win by making competitors look bad or by making your own value proposition irresistible? Are you building sustainable competitive advantages through superior capabilities or just trying to exploit temporary market conditions? Principle number 5. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. In business terms, this means focusing on execution rather than planning, on results rather than intentions, on character development rather than image management. Marcus understood that leadership credibility comes from consistent action aligned with stated values, not from eloquent speeches or impressive strategic presentations. He didn't spend time crafting his public image or managing perceptions. He focused on making good decisions, implementing effective policies and demonstrating the values he wanted to see throughout the empire. This principle is especially relevant for entrepreneurs because business building requires credibility with multiple stakeholders: customers, employees, investors, partners, and communities. That credibility comes from consistent demonstration of competence and character over time, not from marketing messages or public relations campaigns. The most successful entrepreneurs focus more on building great products, developing strong teams, and creating genuine value than on managing their public image or crafting compelling narratives. They understand that sustainable business success requires earning trust through performance, not just through persuasion. The practical application is to regularly evaluate whether your actions align with your stated values and objectives. Are you spending more time talking about what you're going to do or actually doing it? Are you focused on appearing successful or on building the capabilities that create actual success? Are you developing the character traits that enable long-term success or just trying to optimize short-term outcomes? These 5 principles work together to create what Marcus called the discipline of desire, the ability to want what you have rather than constantly chasing what you don't have. This doesn't mean being satisfied with mediocrity or giving up on ambitious goals. It means building wealth and success from a foundation of contentment and purpose, rather than from anxiety, envy, or desperation. Modern neuroscience has confirmed what Marcus understood intuitively. Decision-making quality deteriorates when driven by fear, greed, or other intense emotions. The most successful entrepreneurs make their best decisions from a state of calm confidence, clear thinking, and long-term perspective. They're motivated by purpose and opportunity rather than by desperation or comparison with others. This is why Marcus's approach to wealth building is so powerful in today's economy. In a world of constant change, information overload, and competitive pressure, the ability to maintain perspective, focus on fundamentals, and make principled decisions has become the ultimate competitive advantage. But understanding these principles intellectually isn't enough. You need a systematic approach to implementing them in your daily business practice. Marcus developed what he called the discipline of action, a framework for translating philosophical principles into practical business results. The framework has 3 components: morning preparation, daily execution, and evening review. Marcus practiced this routine throughout his reign, and modern entrepreneurs who adopt similar practices consistently outperform those who don't. Morning preparation involves setting clear intentions for the day based on your long-term objectives and core values. Marcus would spend time each morning reviewing his priorities, anticipating challenges, and mentally rehearsing how he would respond to various scenarios. He didn't just react to whatever happened during the day, he proactively shaped his day around what mattered most. For modern entrepreneurs, this means starting each day with clarity about your most important objectives and how you plan to advance them. It means anticipating likely challenges and preparing your responses in advance. It means connecting your daily activities to your long-term vision and values so that you're building towards something meaningful rather than just staying busy. Daily execution involves applying Stoic principles to real-time decision-making throughout the day. When faced with challenges, opportunities, or difficult decisions, Marcus would pause and ask himself 3 questions. What would virtue require in this situation? What can I control and what can't I control? How does this decision serve the long-term good of the empire? For entrepreneurs, this translates to developing decision-making habits that consistently align with your values and long-term objectives. When faced with business challenges, ask yourself, what would integrity require in this situation? What aspects of this challenge can I control and influence? How does this decision serve the long-term good of my customers, employees, and stakeholders? Evening review involves honest assessment of the day's decisions and outcomes, learning from mistakes, and planning improvements for tomorrow. Marcus would spend time each evening reflecting on his decisions, analyzing what went well and what could have been better, and identifying lessons for future application. This practice is crucial for entrepreneurs because business building involves constant learning and adaptation. The entrepreneurs who build lasting wealth are those who learn fastest from their experiences and continuously improve their decision-making capabilities. The evening review should include three components. What decisions did I make today that aligned with my values and long-term objectives? What decisions did I make that I would handle differently if I had another chance? What did I learn today that will help me make better decisions tomorrow? This daily practice creates what Marcus called the discipline of will, the ability to maintain your commitment to your values and objectives even when faced with short-term pressures, setbacks, or temptations. This is perhaps the most important capability for sustainable wealth building because business success requires making many decisions that prioritize long-term value creation over short-term convenience or profit. Marcus demonstrated this discipline throughout his reign, especially during the most challenging periods. When the plague created enormous pressure to abandon expensive public health measures, he maintained his commitment to protecting the empire's citizens. When military threats created pressure to divert resources from infrastructure and education, he maintained his commitment to long-term prosperity. When political enemies created pressure to abandon his principles of justice and mercy, he maintained his commitment to virtuous leadership. Modern entrepreneurs face similar pressures: to cut corners on product quality, to improve short-term profits, to treat employees poorly, to reduce costs, to make exaggerated marketing claims to increase sales, or to abandon their values when facing competitive pressure. The entrepreneurs who build lasting wealth are those who maintain their commitment to value creation and ethical behavior even under pressure. They understand that sustainable competitive advantages come from superior capabilities and genuine value creation, not from temporary tactics or ethical shortcuts. This is why character development is so central to Marcus's approach to wealth building. Character isn't just about being a good person, though that's important. Character is about developing the internal resources that enable you to make good decisions consistently over time, especially under pressure. Marcus identified 4 cardinal virtues that are essential for effective leadership and sustainable success: wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. These aren't just moral ideals, they're practical capabilities that directly impact business performance. Wisdom means the ability to see situations clearly, understand complex relationships, and make decisions based on accurate information and sound reasoning. In business terms, this translates to market analysis, strategic thinking, and decision-making capabilities. Justice means the ability to treat all stakeholders fairly and to create value for others, not just for yourself. In business terms, this translates to customer focus, employee development, and stakeholder capitalism. Courage means the ability to take appropriate risks, face difficult challenges, and maintain your convictions under pressure. In business terms, this translates to entrepreneurial risk-taking, crisis leadership, and principled decision-making. Temperance means the ability to maintain balance, avoid extremes, and make decisions based on long-term objectives rather than short-term impulses. In business terms, this translates to sustainable growth strategies, financial discipline, and work-life integration. These virtues work together to create what Marcus called the good life, a life of meaning, purpose, and sustainable success. For entrepreneurs, this means building businesses that create genuine value, provide personal fulfillment, and contribute to the greater good. The practical application is to regularly assess your development in each of these areas and to actively work on strengthening your weakest areas. Are you developing the wisdom to see market opportunities and threats clearly? Are you building the justice to create value for all stakeholders? Are you cultivating the courage to take appropriate risks and face difficult challenges? Are you practicing the temperance to maintain balance and long-term perspective? Marcus's approach to wealth building is ultimately about integration, integrating your personal values with your business strategy, integrating short-term tactics with long-term vision, integrating individual success with contribution to others. This integration creates what modern psychologists call authentic success, success that feels meaningful and sustainable rather than hollow or fragile. The entrepreneurs who build lasting wealth are those who achieve this integration. They build businesses that align with their values, create genuine value for others, and provide personal fulfillment. They don't just accumulate money, they build capabilities, relationships, and contributions that create meaning and purpose. This is why Marcus Aurelius remains relevant for modern entrepreneurs 2,000 years after his death. The specific tactics and strategies of business change constantly, but the fundamental principles of character-based leadership, value creation, and long-term thinking remain constant. The entrepreneurs who master these principles build businesses that thrive regardless of changing external conditions. The Roman Empire that Marcus built lasted for over 1,000 years after his death. The principles he developed for sustainable leadership and wealth creation have influenced successful leaders for 2,000 years and continue to shape the most successful entrepreneurs today. By applying these principles to your own business building, you're not just following ancient philosophy, you're applying the most tested and proven approach to sustainable success in human history. The choice is yours. You can continue chasing the latest business tactics and hoping for quick results, or you can build your wealth on the foundation that has created lasting success for 2,000 years. You can focus on external circumstances you can't control, or you can develop the internal capabilities that enable you to thrive regardless of external conditions. You can build a business that serves only your short-term interests, or you can build an empire that creates value for generations. Marcus Aurelius showed us that the greatest wealth isn't just financial, it's the wealth of character, capability, and contribution that enables you to build something truly lasting. The question isn't whether you can afford to apply these principles to your business. The question is whether you can afford not to. The empire you build may not span 3 continents or last 1,000 years, but it can embody the same principles that made Marcus Aurelius not just the richest man in history, but one of the most respected leaders in human history. The choice, as Marcus would say, is entirely within your control.